Every day, there's a battle for your mind raging. Information coming from every angle with the will to deceive. Fear not. You found the place for truth. The voice of a generation that still has the will to believe in the greatest country in the history of the world. This is the Charlie Kirk Show. Buckle up. Here we go.
All right. Welcome to the Charlie Kirk Show. I'm Andrew Colvet, executive producer of this fine show. We have peace in Gaza and in Israel. It is a wonderful day, a day that Charlie Kirk himself would have been extraordinarily pleased by, excited about, and really celebrating in a huge way. And so we are going to be doing that in his stead today. Again, I'm Andrew Colvet. I'm joined by Raheem Kassam from thenationalpulse.com. Welcome, Raheem. Thank you. You're going to be with us maybe the whole show. We'll see, at least the first hour. And, of course, Blake Neff, the not-so-secret weapon of the Charlie Kirk Show. By the way, really great job hosting on Friday. That was amazing. I got to spend some time with my family, and it was much appreciated. So great job to you and Mikey and Danny.
Thank you very much.
So we have peace. I was riveted. I was by the TV this morning watching this historic moment come through the television, watching it from afar, Trump addressing the Knesset, Bibi Netanyahu addressing the Knesset. It was a remarkable display, something that I think we actually have unanimity in opinion across both the left and the right and internationally that Trump was uniquely positioned to bring about the hostages coming home, all 20 living hostages, all men, and we'll get into that in just a second, that have now been returned to their loved ones, their families in Israel. All of Israel is celebrating. They're dancing in the streets. These images are extraordinary that are coming out of the Middle East. And then President Trump had a very remarkable, I would say, speech where he actually called for Bibi to be pardoned, which was not, apparently that was a complete ad-lib. And then he flies to Egypt to work with international leaders in the region to bring about a wider peace to build upon the Abraham Accords. Raheem, first to you. You are our token international representative. Try and boil down the significance of this moment and how big of a win is this for the Trump administration and the world?
You know, you can't, and by the way, firstly and foremostly, thank you for having me, and
yes.
Happy Columbus Day.
Yeah.
You
yes.
know, I think as much as it might rankle your Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who's declared it Native American Day.
Very interesting tweet
on X. But happy Columbus Day to the world, actually. And while we're talking about world affairs,
yes.
You know, and we think about pivotal moments in history, obviously it's a historic occasion, important occasion to mark, and it's now another important occasion to mark. I think peace in the Middle East is something that, since we were children, has kind of become a farce, right? The notion of it has kind of become a farce. And along comes President Trump. You know, I'm wearing his autograph on my chest today.
You are.
And along comes Trump, and just, you know, the way he sort of, I call it, he kindly bullies those around him, right? And he kindly bullies these people who want to fight with each other, who want to war with each other. They always find an excuse to fight in that region, right? Not just the Palestinians and the Israelis, across the whole region. And like you say, uniquely positioned to deliver something that I think for very many years now, a lot of people have thought is completely impossible. Now, I will caveat it. I don't want to be too much of a Debbie Downer, but like I say, they always find a reason to fight. And so, you know, the idea of a lasting peace, rather than just a peace, is the one that they'll now be wrestling with. You know, how do we actually make this stick? What incentives can we provide, both sides, to keep this stuff on the table and not return to and this is the problem. When you have Hamas, you have a faction that necessarily wants to cause conflict. You know, it's in the Hamas charter, right? The eradication of the state of Israel. And so as long as you have Hamas, the idea of a lasting peace is neither here nor there.
Well, and there was already reports, Blake, this morning of some of the, you know, competing warlords within Gaza already killing each other.
They have endless internal feuds with each other over who controls what. And that's going to be, that's the big tough thing. A big reason this deal happened is Trump finally got both sides, especially Israel, to agree to a deal that didn't involve Hamas immediately demobilizing. And the belief is, or he's gambling, that they'll be able to hopefully pull this off with this summit they're holding in Egypt, get all the other Arab states to have buy-in to help support that this will happen. But that's going to be the big test. Even if it fails, of course, he still ended the conflict for now, and he got the hostages out.
Well,
so
absolutely.
that is a big success.
Huge success. And Blake, you were instrumental, especially as Charlie was gearing up for this campus tour, about the Israel topic. I mean, you guys spent a lot of time working on it together. I mean, I was in those conversations too, but you were reading the books. You were kind of drilling him, prepping him, putting it together talkers. Give us an insight into what this meant to Charlie.
He just cared a great deal about it. He cared about peace. He cared about he'd always say one of the most important events of his life was when he went to the Holy Land.
Yeah.
He was able to visit the places that Christ lived around the Sea of Galilee in Jerusalem. And I think he was very aware of the hazards that could happen, if, as some people would say, if Israel ceased to exist and it became just, was overrun, was destroyed, you might have this fundamentalist Islamic State. They might destroy some of those sites, or they might make them very inaccessible for people. I think he found it very important that there be a free Western, non-Islamic country in the Holy Land, and he cared a lot about preserving that.
I think back to this, and Charlie was really keen on this war coming to an end. I mean, of all the wars, this was the one he wanted to see end the quickest, and I think part of the reason was because of the significance to younger voters. And so I'm going to play a clip here that is Charlie actually talking about why President Trump was a man uniquely positioned for this moment and why young people were drawn to his message of peace. So let's go ahead and play cut 58.
One of the main reasons we were able to get young people to vote for President Trump so overwhelmingly this last election was a reminder that President Trump is the peace president, that President Trump is able to broker the impossible peace deals. Look what he did the other day between India and Pakistan. Look at what he did in his first term. And so I do believe that President Trump is uniquely positioned here to stand with our allies, to stand on the side of civilization, but also understand that his voters, they want to return to America first, to stand with what is right and just in the world, but we do not want a potential endless quagmire in the Middle East, and I'm confident President Trump will make sure that does not happen.
Yeah,
that was the other big thing. He was always very worried that as long as this dragged on, there would be pressure for us to send troops there somehow, to get enmeshed in it, to just take on this new Middle Eastern obligation that he was not interested in. We saw that with Iran as well, and we definitely sweat a bit on the Iran one.
Oh, we did.
It was very close to the brink, but he concluded it in a way, dropped one bomb, and then a couple bombs.
Well, like 14.
Yeah, something like that. But then no other casualties, no real retaliation from Iran.
Yeah.
He threaded that needle, and we were saying as this was building up that Trump has gained some credibility in his ability to thread these needles in the Middle East.
Yeah. Well, so we've got Thailand, Cambodia, Israel and Iran, which was a separate Israel conflict, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, India and Pakistan, Serbia and Kosovo, Egypt and Ethiopia, Armenia and Azerbaijan, Israel and Hamas. And now if this holds, this is really so far the crown jewel of all of those, wouldn't you say? Because there's no getting around it. There is an added significance to the state of Israel. We all know it. We all live in this reality where the internet is fixated on it, both those who are pro and against. And this, hopefully, my hope, Raheem, is that this would pull some of that pressure out of that conversation. We'll see.
Yeah, and I think, there's obviously political, and like you say, the sort of online focus. Everything in my feed is Israel nowadays.
Yeah.
I know. Just constant. But it's also a massive historical thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't really, Thailand and Cambodia, sure, love them. Yeah, glad they're at peace. But this is reflective of something wider. This is when a man puts his shoulder to the wheel on something and achieves what nobody else possibly could have, right? You think about the characters, the figures that have been involved in the so-called peace process over the last several decades, right? The Tony Blairs and the Yitzhak Rabins, and everybody who's been lauded, Nobel prized, you name it, and it takes brash Mr. Trump from Brooklyn or Queens to come along and just
find
stick
a deal.
Door in there.
He found a deal.
That's what he does.
All right, we're going to continue just a second, but before we keep going with Raheem Kassam, the National Pulse, and Blake Neff, we're going to tell you about Alan Jackson. We're honored to be partnering with Alan Jackson Ministries, and today I want to point you to their podcast. It's called Culture and Christianity. the Alan Jackson podcast. What makes it unique is that Pastor Alan, he brings biblical perspectives into issues that we are dealing with in our everyday lives. So gender confusion, abortion, immigration, Doge. He discusses all of that. And then he brings in the Bible to explain how you can be part of the solution. We can make a difference. And his guests will also bring practical advice and expertise and powerful testimony. Each episode will make you recognize the power of your faith and how God can use your life to impact the world. The Culture and Christianity podcast is informative and encouraging. So go to Alan Jackson Ministries at alanjackson.com/Charlie to check it out. That's alanjackson.com/Charlie. We'll be right back.